Get ready to turn that idea of yours into a successful side hustle without sacrificing time for the other things in your life. No matter your field, Wix's chat-based AI can help you get your website up and running in minutes so you can start achieving your goals. And don't worry if you don't have all the answers. Who does, right? AI-powered campaigns, SEO, market insights. We're always there for you. From launching your part-time passion to growing it into your full-time career. Head over to Wix.com and start creating today.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Progressive loves to help people make smart choices. That's why they offer a tool called Auto Quote Explorer that allows you to compare your Progressive car insurance quote with rates from other companies. So you save time on the research and can enjoy savings when you choose the best rate for you. Give it a try after this episode at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
O'Reilly! Check engine light on? Take the guesswork out of your check engine light with O'Reilly Veriscan. It's free and provides a report with solutions based on over 650 million vehicle scans verified by ASE certified master technicians. And if you need help, we can recommend a shop for you. Ask for O'Reilly Veriscan today.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. On tonight's episode, we're going to break down the spring breakout game, which happened over the weekend and featured several notable performances from Orioles prospects. I'll be on tonight's episode of Orioles on the Verge, which is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for betting on all the madness. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from college basketball to a $200,000 bracket contest, BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every Cinderella story to every hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. As I mentioned at the top of the show, this past weekend brought us a spring breakout game. The second annual contest saw the Orioles prospects square off against the Yankees prospects and win by a final of 5-4 on a walk-off hit from Leandro Arias, the 19th ranked prospect according to our top 50 list in the Orioles farm system, was one of several prospects who stood out in this game. And you can read about this over at our Substack, oriolesontheverge.substack.com, and catch some video highlights from the game there. But we're going to break it down a little bit more tonight. Now, we should throw in the quick disclaimer that there was no publicly available StatCast data to back this game at Ed Smith Stadium in Sarasota, so you're not going to get a lot of hard data on this episode. So we're going to have to rely on the eye test a little bit, but what we could see for the eye test, and frankly, it was a pretty decent amount for an exhibition game, was pretty good. So we're going to get into that a little bit tonight. And Nick, I'll start with you since you wrote that piece on Substack that I just plugged a moment ago. What were some of your takeaways from this game?
I think just broadly speaking, before we talk about individual players, it was the pitching stood out, of course. We can talk about Keeler Morphe in his performance, but the rest of the pitching really stood out. Lots of zeros on the board there against an older, advanced Norfolk prospect team. I enjoyed that. The defense was on display. That was good to see. And honestly, my biggest takeaway, there's really nothing, even just the eye test, right? We can get more excited about certain guys. We got to see DJ Layton for the very first time, like live and in person. We got to see Steven Martinez in a batter's box. I believe he got an at bat in this one. Maybe he didn't. I can't remember. He did. Jordan Sanchez. We got to see a couple of guys for the very first time. Chase Alsop, but there's a few guys who I'm way more excited to see in 2025. But to me, the biggest takeaway, the one hard and fast takeaway that I took away that this game produced was Enrique Bradfield Jr. I joined the Enrique Bradfield Jr. Stan Club. I was already like feeling a lot better about him as a prospect coming into this season, as we've talked so much about him this offseason. But that interview at the end of the game, the whole story coming out afterwards, dedicating the game to his friend who had just passed away like 2-3 days before. But that interview that he carried with Melanie Newman and Jim Callis, who were on the call, man, that is a young man. I feel old as dirt saying that, but he's what 13 years younger than me. That young man clearly understands the journey he's already been on and what has gotten him to this point, and he understands the journey that lies ahead. And he has clearly defined goals and a mission in front of him, and he is not going to stop until he achieves those goals and achieves that mission. And you talk about having a good head on your shoulders, like any cliche you want, it's there. Like that was my biggest takeaway, was I'm cheering for Enrique Bradfield Jr. harder than probably anyone else, because I want to see that guy achieve everything he talked about in that broadcast.
Absolutely. Co-sign everything you just said. Off the field characters through the roof. Intangibles. Like the way he was getting fired up, and just he's going to be so good for the Orioles clubhouse once he hits it. And, because it's a loose clubhouse. We love it. Jordan Westberg's all business, but he's kind of got that Gunnar Henderson fire, but in a more enthusiastic, fun way. I think it's going to be perfect fit for what we're building up. We did it on the verge. We're building this team up at the major league level. Yeah, Enrique Bradfield Jr. could not have had a better showcase of what he brings to the table. Just, he had a nice solid base hit. I think he bunt for a base hit. He's scoring on just wild pitches and errant pickoff throws. Just his speed is causing chaos. And yeah, I think, again, just can't say enough good things about Enrique Bradfield Jr. And I'm glad he's an Oriole, and I'm glad he brings a different tool set than we're used to seeing when it comes to these Orioles top prospects.
Bradfield went 2 for 3 in that game, and as you both touched on, his speed really wreaking havoc on the Yankees. He swiped a bag in that game. He's overall had a pretty good spring, made a good impression in Major League camp during his time there, and very high hopes for him going into the season. Let's talk now about the pitching. I want to start with Keeler Morphe, who started this game. Statistically, not the best outing you're going to see from Morphe. And in fact, you look at the box score, it was a little bit ugly, but still, you got a brief glimpse of what makes him such an interesting prospect on that pitch that he struck out George Lombard Jr. with in the first inning. 99-mile-per-hour fastball up in the zone. Lombard swung right through it. I know the results weren't there, but you could see the stuff on display a little bit, even if his command of it was not the best on Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, the stat line, it wasn't great, but I still loved it. I mean, it's an exhibition game. He's trying to show off what he's got. He's 18 years old, amped up beyond belief, I'm sure, to start the game. And to me, just having him start the game over the guys that we ended up seeing later on, it's like, that's a vote of confidence from the club about what they think he can bring to the table as well. And yeah, he's just running high 90s. Maybe he touched 100. We won't ever know, but he will at some point this season. But I loved it. Just go out there, put on a show. Yeah, the control was not where we want it to be and where it will probably be during the season, knock on wood. But I think he gave you a look at what his stuff is, and it's exciting.
Yeah, there's no doubt that was the biggest stage Keeler Morphe has ever pitched on. An 18-year-old kid with a couple of innings at Delmarva last year, and now it's spring training lights, but it's the bright lights of spring training. It's a night game. I don't even know if this kid's pitching a night game since he signed with the Orioles, to be honest. It's different out there. And he's going up against George Lombard. He's going up there against Spencer Jones. I enjoyed the Spencer Jones at bat, not going to lie. He's facing a very advanced New York lineup. And, you mentioned him being amped up. You saw him bring it down a little bit at times when he would start to get out of control. It looked like it was an awful camera angle. Michael Ash trying to hide these guys the best he can in this game. He's like, I'm going to show you, but I'm just going to show you just a little bit. So it's hard to tell exactly what he was throwing. And of course, we got a couple of 98, 99s from the broadcast mentions there, but it looked like he would slow it down and throw a couple of breaking balls, get a couple strikes, but then he would get 2 strikes on a guy and get jacked up again. It's like, all right, here you go. I'm going to do it again. and it's 99 above the guy's head, and now he's behind in the count, and it's like, all right, he's a young kid. Take this with you to Delmarva and build on last year. What little you pitched last year. There's very little mileage on this arm. Like, the ceiling is still incredibly high. The secondaries looked good. Like, he impressed Rock. I even saw Rock tweeting like, "Hey, this kid's got some stuff." Like, you're impressing a guy like Rock. You're doing something right. Yeah, shout out to Keeler Morphe. I wish more people would be able to see like a star-studded performance like some of these other arms had, but you at least got to see that it is a high octane arm for sure.
Yeah, there were a few good pitching performances in this game. Cameron Weston in the ninth inning, scoreless frame with a strikeout. Levi Wells an inning and a third, scoreless. Pat Riley, 2 scoreless innings with a couple of strikeouts. Luis De Leon, who I have to say looked pretty good in big league camp for the Orioles earlier this spring. Scoreless inning with a strikeout in this game. Nestor Herman also had a scoreless inning and was backed by an excellent play in right field from Judd Fabian. So a couple of good pitching performances in this one, but what stood out to you guys?
Pat Riley. I thought really, look, I loved everything we saw from the pitching. Even the guys that like Bragg also gave up a run, gave up a hit, whatever, maybe walked a batter. But I thought every single pitcher that came out showed flashes of, like Vivek said in the chat, flashes of what you could dream on, what these guys can do, and why they're so highly regarded, at least by us for now and by everyone by the end of the season, is my prediction. But I thought Pat Riley that electric fastball was there. And yeah, I think he went 2 innings, 2 scoreless innings, walked 2 batters, struck out 2 batters. But I just think he looks a lot more polished. And again, it's 2 innings, so who knows? But he looked a little bit like his stuff ticked up. Maybe it was adrenaline, maybe not, but he was sitting like 97 instead of touching 97. But again, no real velocities, just what they said. Yeah, I think he stood out, but the pitching, I just loved every minute of it.
Yeah, I think we're going to hit on Levi Wells in a prompt later on. So I'll save some Levi Wells thoughts for then. That was a very good outing from him. Double on TV outings for Levi Wells. Start opening some eyes there. Yeah, for me, it was De Leon. Like, that was quick. That was, what, 7 pitches? Do they have the pitches here? They don't have the pitches on this thing. Of course not. I'm pretty sure it was 7 pitches, 2 ground ball outs and a strikeout. That is prime Luis De Leon. I think we've kind of been, I want to say down on De Leon. Like, I think what we've mentioned a lot this offseason whenever we're talking about him and doing the top 50 update is that it just didn't seem like he took a big step forward last year while so many other arms did. But De Leon didn't have a down year by any means, but that's what he does. 68% ground ball rate 2 years ago, a 60% ground ball rate last year in the minors, 97 from the left side with a truly A+ slider. Like, he's got a starter's mix, but if he needs to fall back to the bullpen and you're going to pump upper 90s from the left side with a wipeout slider and keep the ball on the ground 50 to 60% of the time, like that's another arm that I don't think gets enough love at the moment because, like I mentioned, so many other guys broke out last year. But when he gets to AA this year, if he can build on what he's done in high A, I think De Leon's going to firmly put himself back on the map this year.
Absolutely. Yeah, he was fantastic. Again, it was not many pitches, and speaking of just underrated, I mean, I love that Cameron Weston was able to come in, get the win with the Orioles coming back in the bottom of the ninth. Nice, perfect inning with the strikeout. Ho-hum, another Cameron Weston, nice outing.
Yeah, it was great to see that from Weston. And with De Leon, like I've said before, if he puts it all together, he's a top 100 prospect because there just aren't a lot of pitchers from the left side that have the kind of stuff that he has. The problem that he had last year was that after he was promoted to Aberdeen, because he was pretty much lights out in Delmarva, after he got promoted to Aberdeen, he had the command issues were glaring. And what I noticed, what seemed to happen a lot, was that he would come out of the bullpen and have a 3-inning outing where the first inning, pretty clean, and then the second or the third inning, he would just hit a wall and would struggle to throw strikes. If he can avoid that this year, if he can avoid the big inning in that respect, I think he's going to put together a really nice year. Now, I'll go over to the hitters in this game because we've already touched on Bradfield and his performance. DJ Layton, 1 for 1. As Nick mentioned at the beginning of the show, this was our first chance to really see Leighton. And in fact, we're probably not going to see a whole lot of him this year because he's going to most likely start down the FCL, might end up playing the whole season there. If he gets to Delmarva, it's probably not going to be until late. But you're already starting to hear some things that, at least internally, the Orioles are very high on this guy. And for the little bit of glimpse that we saw on Saturday, he's got a pretty interesting skill set.
I loved watching DJ Leighton just because, I've never seen him step in a batter's box in an Orioles uniform before or an affiliate uniform before. It was hard to rank him in the preseason. There's some good reports, and clearly the Orioles are high on him. But I know personally for me, it was just hard to decide how high exactly do I rank him. I know some outlets have him as a top 30 prospect. It's harder for me to rank these high school guys that don't have a ton of fanfare or a ton of, high octane behind them coming into the draft. But still, I don't know who the Yankees pitcher was, but it was a 98 mile per hour fastball, according to the broadcast, that he took right up the middle. Little slight shift on him, beat that, and eventually scored what would be, I think, the game tying run on the Austin Overeem triple there. He's got wheels, as do most guys that were in that lineup have. Beautiful knock. You start out your career 1-for-1. It's an unofficial game. It's an unofficial at bat, but in our eyes, he's 1-for-1 in his career. And shout out to DJ Leighton. I need him in Delmarva ASAP, because if that was just a tease, then I can't wait until the end of the summer for a month-long call-up in Delmarva. I need him up in Delmarva in 2 months.
Yeah, love to see it. Just taking 98 right back where it came from. Nice base hit. I think it's, again, just like it says a lot to me that they had Keeler Morphe start the game over all these other pitchers. It says a lot to me that DJ Leighton and Steven Martinez were able to get into this game at such a young age, and especially Leighton have never played professional ball before, and get in there. And Steve Martinez popped up in the infield, but Leighton able to get a hit in there in his one at bat. And I feel like maybe this is where we should talk about, as an aside, that Matt Blood was on I think it was the spring training game the day before, getting ready for the spring breakout game, or maybe it was earlier in the day, talking about Nate George and how he's turning heads at minor league camp and is the talk of the town in Twin Lakes. Is that not Twin Lakes? Ed Smith, I don't know, whatever you want to call the minor league side of the thing. So a couple of high school guys who maybe could hit Delmarva sooner rather than later and show off what they got in the draft.
Listeners, are you looking for a shortcut to better auto insurance for you? Something that takes all the research off your plate, something that's easy, something that matches you at lower rates, something genius. That's where NerdWallet comes in. These nerds have already done the work for you. Just answer a few questions and ta-da, you'll be matched with top insurance providers in your area. Find the right rate for you today at nerdwallet.com. After all, using NerdWallet is more than just smart, it's genius. Not all applicants will qualify for the lowest monthly payments. NerdWallet Insurance Services, Inc. CA resident license number OK92033.
Playing with an idea for a side hustle, but just don't have the time to do it? Well, with Wix, you get the freedom to build a successful side business online while keeping your other priorities front and center. And don't worry if you don't have all the answers. Who does, right? Our chat-based AI can guide you through the process, creating a website that's as unique as you are, no matter what your field. From starting your part-time passion to growing it into your full-time career. Go to Wix.com to get started.
Now's the time for a great deal on a new Honda. It's time to drive smarter with high-tech features and excellent reliability. Check out the Honda Civic, Accord, or HR-V. For a limited time, well-qualified buyers can get a 4.99% APR on a 2025 Civic or a 3.99% APR on a 2025 Accord or HR-V.
See dealer for financing details. Exclude Civic Si and Type R.
For more than 50 years, National University has been a military-friendly, yellow-ribbon school that understands the importance of honor and commitment. With 4- and 8-week classes available, year-round enrollment, and more than 190 programs to choose from, we help veterans just like you define the next chapter of their careers. Learn more at nu.edu. That's nu.edu.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking again about the hitters, Leandro Arias, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, he won this game for the Orioles, a walk-off single in the bottom of the ninth inning. And Arias, who's the 19th ranked prospect on our list, has been on our radar for a while, and he had an interesting season last year in the sense that he was at Delmarva for a while, went on the IL, came back, and it just seemed like he could never really quite get it going at the plate. And as I was following him last year, I thought, okay, this is going to be a case where a guy who's young, he's only 19, goes to Delmarva, doesn't overwhelm in his first year there, but he'll go back next year, and that will be when you want to start to see the big adjustments. Arias got to Aberdeen before the season ended and was actually a little bit better at Aberdeen than he had been at Delmarva. From what I saw of him, again, just 2 at-bats on Saturday, you can see flashes of what makes him an interesting prospect, a guy who can play up the middle, good line drive stroke, good eye at the plate. I feel like that if you want to look at someone who's kind of in the middle, towards the middle of the list now, he's 19th, as I said, on our list, probably in the middle of most top 30s, who could move up this year. I think Arias has to be a guy that you look at because of what he can do at his age and the fact that he ended last year strong. If he's able to carry that momentum into this year, he can be in line for a nice season.
Absolutely. I think he's got a really mature approach, just a mature offensive game in general. I think a couple solid at bats, again, just taking the pitch where they are and hitting them into the outfield. And yeah, game winner. I mean, that's a little bit of the pressure, ice water in his veins. Got the job done. So you love to see it. I do think he's a big breakout potential this year. I think there's a lot of guys in the system this year that have this huge breakout potential, but he's certainly near the top of the list on who I would predict to do that.
I think it's funny because Aaron Estrada wasn't in this game, right? No, he was not in the spring breakout game. But I think it's funny that Aaron Estrada, we look at him a couple of years ago when he first joined the organization as this maybe like Freddie Bencosme 2.0 type guy, someone who I think that was, a prediction of ours at one point that he quickly rises through the lower levels of the minor leagues and just hits. Well, Aaron Estrada is the one that's developed the power with like almost double-digit home runs last year. Leandro Arias, after he was signed, I remember Fangraphs being the high list on him because of the power potential. And now I think they've dropped his power grades a couple of notches. And it doesn't seem like Leandro Arias is really ever going to develop into that type of power. But the hit tool, I think, is impressed. And I think that's like a 50, 60 grade hit tool that he's got on him now. It's funny how those two guys have seemed to switch over the last couple of years. And yeah, Leandro Arias was hurt last year. He spent some time in the complex league. I don't remember what exactly the injury was, but I do remember him being in the complex league for a lot longer than I think anyone anticipated him being. He was knocking the cover off the ball, 2-3 hits every single game, and they just weren't bringing him back up to Delmarva for whatever reason. They finally did, and it was like a below league average bat. But like Zach said, you got to high A. He held his own up there for the 2-3 weeks he was up there. So I'm excited if that hit tool is going to break out. We'll see. I don't really know anything about the defense, so I can't speak to that. But if he's just going to be a hitter and can rise up the ranks quickly that way without the power, then maybe he's the next, Freddie Bencosme type player instead of Estrada. But I'll take it as long as it's one of them.
Vance Honeycutt with the inside the park home run in this game, part of a 1-for-2 performance. Now we have to acknowledge Spencer Jones really butchered that fly ball. That was pretty bad, but still, it was fun to watch Honeycutt run around the bases. If you want to see his speed on display, watch that clip because you can see from that he can fly. We've talked a lot about Honeycutt in the last few weeks, whether it's been our top 50 countdown or some of our other preseason coverage, but this was probably for a lot of Orioles fans the first opportunity to see him. What were your guys' impressions of his performance in this game?
Yeah, that ball should probably be caught like 90, 95% of the time, but still he struck the ball well. And like you said, he got to show off his speed. But my favorite part of the VP's game was that he had some nice at-bats, didn't strike out, took a walk. He's going to do that. But, you want to see indications that swing and miss maybe are going to cut down a little bit. Well, it looked pretty good in this game here. But, yeah, him and Bradfield, if they both hit and make it to the majors, could be pretty electric in that outfield and on the bases. So, yeah, super fun to see. And I guess Austin O'Vern you could put into that mix as well, hitting a triple I think Clark Clegg on Twitter said he looked good. He's standing out at the minor league side of things, and yeah, it's just a super talented group of speedsters that maybe can hit the ball harder than people think.
I think both of those guys. First with Overn, he gets completely overlooked. Said this all offseason because this is a deep, really talented outfield group that the Orioles have. It is the strength of this system. Overn is no slouch in any category you put him in. He is up there toe-to-toe with Fabian and Bradfield in a lot of categories. And he had a beautiful rebound in the Cape Cod League after a bit of a downturn when he was at USC to close out his career. But he got rid of football. He focused solely on baseball, and he took off. He's going to be a lot of fun to watch this year. We'll see how good that hit tool is. But with Honeycutt, it's kind of the same thing. I think he gets overlooked, and just because whenever anyone mentions the name Vance Honeycutt, it's can he hit? It's the hit tool. It's the whiff. And yes, those are massive, massive holes in his game. But I think it distracts from the full picture of who Vance Honeycutt is and what his potential is. Like it's not an exaggeration when I say that Vance Honeycutt truly he probably has the highest ceiling of any hitter outside of Samuel Basayo in this system. He has a long way to go to reach that, but I don't think a lot of people truly understand just how good of a prospect Vance Honeycutt can be. They immediately just point to the faults. And that game, a 1-game sample, we'll see what he does this offseason, but 3 at-bats. He made contact on 2 of them, and he walked. I'll take it. And you know what? Yeah, he should have been out the other time, but the wheels. At least he showed off the wheels. That's all I cared about. He showed you a tool in his toolbox, and it was immaculate.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to Overn for a minute because, Nick, you wrote a pretty good piece about this on Substack a couple months ago. Overn has 270 grade tools, and we talk all the time about how Bradfield has 280 grade tools. Overn's got 270 grade tools with his speed and his defense. And I think we know that the eye at the plate is going to be pretty good. It's just a matter of how the bat is going to come along. And while, yes, he did have a little bit of a down year at USC, he performed well in the Cape Cod League, and the limited sample size we saw last year. After the draft, he performed pretty well. So I feel like Overn is one of those guys that could play really well in Aberdeen because space is power alleys for him to just pepper line drives with. He's going to cover that ground easily out there in the outfield. And you can see him really rack up the extra base hits, even if the home run power isn't there this year.
Yeah, it was, you talk about Matt Blood giving shout outs. Matt Blood had a quote right after last year's draft that they were in on Overn at a very early stage and stuck with him even through the struggles. And so to see him rebound on the Cape, I think was more than enough for the Orioles to go ahead and pull that trigger there and bring in Overn when they did. And yeah, going into the 2024 season, not the year before, but going into the 2024 season, he had first, second round grades on him by some in the draft prospect industry. So yeah, the buzz wore off a little bit, but this was a kid who had extremely high draft grades and extremely high expectations on him after that freshman year at USC. And yeah, you've got 2 elite tools and you're a premier defender at a premier position. Yeah, Overn is going to be a stud to follow in Aberdeen. Having Overn and Bradfield, I don't know what the rest of Aberdeen could look like. If it's like a Thomas Sosa, Austin Overn, Vance Honeycutt outfield in Aberdeen to start the year, I mean, that's just as impressive as the one we saw in the spring breakout game.
Yeah, I got to get there first week of the season to Aberdeen. But yes, apologies. It was Chris Clegg, not Clark. I don't know what I'm thinking. Clark Griswold, maybe. But he tweeted out, Orioles Austin Overn has given me impressive looks this week, both on the backfields and at the spring breakout game. He's an impressive athlete, plus a better runner and a really strong defender. Overn has shown the ability to hit the ball hard and gets it in the air often to the pull side. And yeah, that's exactly what the Orioles want their hitters to do. And he's doing it. He's going to make an impact at the plate, on the bases, in the field. Impact player.
Now, some of the guys we haven't talked about tonight, like Dylan Beavers, Levi Wells, we're going to be talking about a lot later this week when we get into grading the bold predictions from our listeners. You're going to want to check that out. But before we wrap this up, Bob and Nick, any final thoughts?
This spring breakout game was what I needed to fully get ready, get me excited for the minor league season, because we're going to see all these guys and many more night in and night out. And it's been too long. I know we get burnt out by the end of the season, but man, I'm ready to get back in there, dive in the deep end.
Yeah, I really honestly wasn't too excited for this game going into it. Just knowing that we weren't going to get like any numbers. Like, it's cool if you haven't seen these guys before, but it's like, I want numbers. I want data. That's what I need on these guys. And we're not going to get any of that. And then I thought it was only going to be 7 innings. We got 9 innings. That was a pleasant surprise as well. But these guys showed out. The Bradford interview, like I mentioned. And even if it's just a spring breakout, practice game, whatever, there's a sign of the future here. Orioles prospects beating up on the Yankees prospects, what little prospects they have. It was a good night. Good night in Birdland. Good kickstart. And I do agree. I was jacked up for the season, but this is like, let's go. We're like, 10, 11 days from minor league ball. We're just hours away from the start of Major League Ball. I'm even excited for this Japan series. Like, that game was exactly what we needed to get 2025 going.
Absolutely. And we will be back later on this week to grade the bold predictions of our listeners for the 2025 season on the 20 to 80 scouting scale. You're not going to want to miss that. I should mention that we've had a pretty busy week here. Former Oriole and Hagerstown Flying Boxcars pitching coach Arthur Rhodes joined us in the middle of last week. If you hadn't had a chance to check that out yet, please do so. And we were just on Locked On Orioles with Connor Newcomb for our annual minor league draft. You should go check out that episode. And we'll be back later on this week. In the meantime, you can check us out on our many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, and Twitch. We're also over at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com. And while you're browsing around the internet, be sure to head over to our Patreon community and sign up to become a member today. You can join for as little as $3 a month and have access to bonus coverage throughout the season from Bob, Nick, and myself, as well as other perks that come with being a patron. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spedden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, presented by BetOnline and part of the Believe Podcast Network.
Get ready to turn that idea of yours into a successful side hustle without sacrificing time for the other things in your life. No matter your field, Wix's chat-based AI can help you get your website up and running in minutes so you can start achieving your goals. And don't worry if you don't have all the answers. Who does, right? AI-powered campaigns, SEO, market insights. We're always there for you. From launching your part-time passion to growing it into your full-time career. Head over to Wix.com and start creating today.
Now's the time for a great deal on a new Honda. It's time to take an adventure with rugged capability and commanding style. Check out the Honda Ridgeline, Pilot, or CR-V. For a limited time, well-qualified buyers can get a 3.99% APR on a 2025 Pilot, a 1.99% APR on a 2025 Ridgeline, or a 2.99% APR on a 2025 CR-V.
See dealer for financing details.
For more than 50 years, National University has been a military-friendly, yellow ribbon school that understands the importance of honor and commitment. With 4- and 8-week classes available, year-round enrollment, and more than 190 programs to choose from, we help veterans just like you define the next chapter of their careers. Learn more at nu.edu. That's nu.edu.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.